I'm Ryan,
And I'm Jess.
and this is Esoteric Nonsense.
All right. So I wanted to hear from an atheist turned agnostic. What's the difference between being an atheist and being an agnostic?
Okay, the quick answer is that there's atheist is being sure that there is nothing, and agnostic is being sure of nothing.
That there is like nothing at all in the entire universe?
So like an atheist would say that the whole everything is coincidence and happenstance, or whatever word you want to give to it. That there's no plan, there's no overarching person, there's no higher being, there's no God, there's no anything like that. There's you, there's the basic elements that make you up, and they come together to make you when you're born, and they go back to the earth when you die. Like, that is literally it. That's all there is. Whereas agnostic is, whether they're still searching or not, there's not enough proof in either direction for them to have an opinion. So they just don't have an opinion, is really more what it is. They're open to information, like ones that are still searching, like myself. I'm open to learn as much as I can about anything, but there's not enough definitive evidence that obviously only I am the one that can qualify, right? Like, I don't know what the bar is, but whatever it is that proves to me one way or the other that there's a higher consciousness, a higher being, or just like, hey, the Christians got it right. There's a God, like, it's all correct. There's a burden of proof that hasn't been met for me. But I'm not saying that anyone is wrong.
But you also have no idea what that burden of proof would look like.
No, I don't. I can't tell you what I would have to see. Like, if I had a conscious vision of a God that just literally slapped me in the face and said, I'm going to lay it out for you because somehow I'm important enough to have that information, then maybe then, right? But it would almost be like...
Well, then in that you would become a mystic.
Right. And I think the way that I've always looked at it is, the difference is that now I'm actually curious and looking. And before, when I was an atheist, I would have said the only way you're changing my mind is if something comes along when I don't even want it to, and I'm not even receptive to it, and forces me to change my mind. Because I'm not worried about that happening, right? Because I don't believe that can happen.
Well, and even if it did, would you just explain it away?
It likely, yeah. That's why I said a waking conscious vision, where like I can't call it a dream. I can't call it. There's nothing for me to attribute it to being some kind of hallucination.
Hallucination.
That's exactly correct. Look it up. But something like that I could explain it away would get in the way of me accepting it. But it's like a lot of things. I don't know because it hasn't happened. And it's my experience. So anyone else telling me, well, what if this happened? What if this happened? I'm like, sure.
So what you really need is a personal experience with a deity.
Mm-hmm. The same thing about like ghosts. I don't not believe in the possibility of ghosts. I don't not believe people when they tell me I have a direct experience with ghosts. I'm not even trying to explain it away, saying that I think that's not what you saw. I'm just saying I haven't had that experience, and because I can't have your experience, I'm undecided. I'm undecided on what it is your experience was. And it's tough because it's tough to tell people that you're not on board with what they experienced 100% without sounding like you're calling them a liar. But it's not what it is. It wasn't my experience. I don't know.
You sound a lot like the Christian church.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, you do. That's exactly what the Christian church did to mystics, whether they be, I guess I can't even just say the Christian church, the church in general did to the mystics. Mysticism comes when you've had a direct, undeniable experience with the deity, and you know it to be true. And a lot of the esoteric writings and a lot of mysticism is the mystics trying to explain this undeniable truth that they know. And I have conversations with Christians all the time who say, yeah, but I mean, I'm just waiting for God to talk to me. He hasn't talked to me yet. It can happen. I can tell you from my own experience, this can happen. Medical science tries to say there's a whole new thing now that they call it religious schizophrenia. So if you've had a contact with a deity, whatever that may look like, be it a God, an angel, whatever it is, and you attribute it to a religious experience, that's now known as religious schizophrenia.
Nice. Okay. And schizophrenia is actually I'm not going down this rabbit hole, but it's an interesting affliction, right? because like a lot of things about people who are schizophrenic would also be true of someone like me who all of a sudden found out like this whole mind shattering like truth and believed that I was being watched, or I mean that's paranoid schizophrenia, but like all these things that no one else believes, that like I'm just like I have to tell everybody because I know it to be true. And they're like, this dude's schizophrenic.
Well, and that's what physicians call it, right? And then the church calls it heresy, which heresy is literally defined as any belief that's not common within the church.
Right. Yeah.
Which that's always shocking for people to find out, because a heretic is not somebody who worships the devil, which is what it's commonly believed to be.
Very much if you're not with us, you're against us. So
right.
It gets attributed to the devil because that's the obvious you're against us kind of thing.
Right. And then looking at agnostic belief, you have the agnostic theist, right? Which is more open to the idea of I'm willing to accept, but the burden of proof is not on me.
Right.
But I'm open to the proof.
Right.
And then the agnostic atheist is more along the lines of I'm certainly not going to believe until you show me something. And I'm also not looking. That's kind of what you were saying, right? Like,
right.
I'm not interested in believing and I'm not interested in looking. And I'll look in that direction, but I'm definitely going to keep my eyes shut the whole time.
Right. And I think that's probably more realistic about the shift that I've made in the last, I don't know, few years, is that I started as more of an agnostic atheist, where it was like, listen, I'm done telling people that they're wrong, because that's not cool. Like I don't like it.
No, it's like really inappropriate.
Right.
You don't get to tell anybody anything about their spiritual journey. I don't care who you are.
Right.
And I know there's a lot of people that take liberties with that, but no, that's in my mind, that's like the most inappropriate thing that you can do on the human journey, is to tell somebody that their path is wrong.
Right.
You know, there's a difference between being an enabler and very human effects. Like if you have a friend who's hooked on heroin, do want to help them. That is something that you can say, this is very harmful to your being, and we need to roll that back and let me help you get off of it. But when it comes to a spiritual journey, there's not a right or wrong. And there is not somebody who's more important. There is not a place. I'll even take it right back to the Bible for people who there is a culture of people who want to tell you everything that was said in the Bible and why you're wrong on your spiritual journey. But in the first book of John, which is probably one of my favorite esoteric writings of all time, in the first book of John, it says, from God, in the speech of God, you need no man to teach you nor lead you, for you know the truth within. I have put it in there for you to know.
Right. And I like that a lot. I wish that's something that I
may have misquoted that a little bit, and I'm sure there's people who can quote it better than I can, but that's the gist of what it says.
Okay.
And I'm not taking that out of context. It's the first thing that's written, in the first book of John, that was the statement from God, and it doesn't have a different context. It is very blatant, stands on its own, and is a very clear indication that your spirit lives inside of you.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the toughest thing for someone like myself, with the burdens of proof that I'm like accustomed to for anything else that isn't like spiritual, is that because the experience is your own, and it is all of the evidence that I've ever been given is 100% anecdotal. It's all anecdotal evidence. It's unique to that person who's telling me. So like my thing is always like, I want to hear your story. It's interesting to me, but for the most part, it's always posed to me as, so don't you believe now? And then you're like, well, no, because I didn't have that experience. And
but
like,
I do believe that you believe.
Right. But they don't hear that. It's so hard to hear that. Like, if you don't believe in God based on what I told you, then you think I'm lying about what I told you, or that I'm wrong about what I experienced. It's like an impossible conversation to have, because I don't have any. It's cool. Like I believe you.
But there's a book that tells you to.
I know. You just have to believe. That's all you got to do. And really, that's what it comes down to, is the being an agnostic theist is, for me, it's accepting that this is a personal journey. But it's such a personal thing that once I kind of realized that, like, the other thing that I was also doing since I was a kid, and also not into religion, and was wanted to tell everybody how there was no God, and they were all didn't know what they were talking about. At the same time, I was a very introspective person. I thought about my effect on people around me, and like shared consciousness and things like ESP, and that people talk about like it's a kind of like a joke, but it happens so often.
I don't think it's a joke.
Yeah, but and it has happened so often that it's hard to discount. But all those things were things that were me taking my own personal journey to figure out my own spirituality and what was important to me. But I wouldn't ever give it that label, because that's something that these people do, and they go looking for someone to show them the way rather than doing it themselves. So I didn't understand that that was the same thing. They're just doing it a different way.
I don't know. I heard a quote, and if I'm being honest, I probably read it on Instagram.
All right.
Heard a quote, read it on Instagram. Same these days.
It's official.
It's official. But it really kind of hit home for me. And I don't know who originally said this, so apologies that I can't cite them. But what the quote said was, religion is for people who believe in hell, and spiritualism is for people who have been there.
Okay.
And I thought, that's an incredible quote.
Yeah. No, I do like that, because it's not super common to find someone who's been through some real crazy shit that isn't spiritual, that isn't religious or something like. And a lot of times it was that experience that made them that way.
That can go the other way too, though. I actually have some people that are very close to me, a person who's very close to me, who I won't reveal their identity, but who did go through some very, very incredibly dark times when we were younger. And I mean, to the worst that you could imagine. And not just things that happen to them, but things that happen around them, and just saw atrocious things, and is now a dead fast atheist, because the question arises, right? What kind of God would let this happen? Yeah. And I do understand that viewpoint too.
Right. And my viewpoint on those kinds of subjects is that if there is a God in the way that we like, the biblical God, he doesn't care. Like, he sets things in motion and he's watching it play out, and you can come to him and you can worship him. You can be part of something and acknowledge him. Like, you can do whatever you want, though. Like, the free will is absolute free will. Mm-hmm. The fact that something terrible happened to all these people because this person exercised their free will in a really fucked up way, and it was against other people. I'm not saying it was planned or it was part of it was supposed to happen. I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying God doesn't care. God is just watching how things play out. He doesn't have a direct influence. He doesn't give AIDS to kids in Africa. Well, it's just a thing that happened, and he's like, that's interesting. He's just watching,
In my opinion, too, if you could ask the question, where was God that day? Then you could ask the same question, why did I survive that day?
Right. You can play it either way.
Right. And it's a frame of reference too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like the, what do they call it? Survivor's
guilt. Yeah.
Yeah. And,
which is very real. I mean,
yeah,
that's incredibly real for a lot of people.
Yeah. Luckily I've never had to deal with anything that would give me a survivor's guilt like that. But, I can definitely imagine that would bother me, that somehow I made it out. You know what I mean? I'm a little bit different kind of guy. So I don't know how I would handle any of that kind of situation, but it makes sense. And I wouldn't, neither direction surprises me. If you decide because of this, there must not be a God, or at least not a loving, caring, all powerful God.
Yeah. Even by history's sake, an image of the all loving, only good hippie God is, even by accounts of, if you were to go by the Christian God and look at the Bible, or literally any other religion.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Buddhism is a little different. The Buddha is a little different. But when you look at gods in general throughout all of history, no matter which gods they're writing about, we're talking about savage warrior gods. Yeah. I don't know where that depiction of like the nice, kind hippie God comes from. I have to imagine how dinner went, right? When Jesus wanted to come to earth, God was probably just like, you know what? These fucking, I know I said I wouldn't flood it again, but I'm going to light it on fire. And Jesus was probably like, Dad, relax 1 second. Let me go down there just for a minute. Let me see if I can talk to him. See if I can get him on the right path. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
God was probably like, you got one shot, Jesus. I mean, these guys are out of control.
Yeah.
I don't really know what to do with them. Oh. They're just becoming parasitic. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a real problem. And by the way, I'm only, like, you don't know it right now, but I'm only giving you 33 years to figure this out.
Right. And by 33 years in God years, like, what is it? What's
like a blink of an eye.
What's the account say? That 1,000 years in the human realm is but a day to the gods.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was literally a blink. It's like, I'm going to
I
give
don't
you,
even know if it says but a day. It might say but an
yeah,
hour to the gods.
I'm giving you 30 minutes to turn this around.
He was
you
like,
know?
by the time I'm done doing the dishes, you better be back.
You better be back. It's fine, but whatever.
Be here by the time the street lights turn on.
Yeah. Yeah. Come be back by the end of the commercial break. And, I think that's one of the things that's always bugged me too, is like the hypocrisy in the way that it's portrayed versus what I can read for myself. Like I admittedly have not read the entire Bible. I'll pick things out here and there. The fact that I studied the Bible at all was from an atheist point of view. There's a lot of stuff that's just kind of like, yeah, tell me why the hell this is in the Bible.
Right, you just did it to argue with Christians,
right?
didn't
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
You did.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, because I felt like that was giving them respect, because telling them that I don't believe in what they believe and then never reading the book that they based it on is like saying that.
If you're being honest with yourself in the moment, was it I just want to show these people respect, or was it I want to have a firmly planted argument?
No.
Yes.
It was that I'm a responsible young man. No, definitely. I definitely wanted to shit on the things that they were telling me and show them where there was hypocrisy or like stuff that didn't match what they were saying. The justification was that you're learning the subject if you're going to argue it, which no one fucking asked me to in the first place. No one was like really forcing anything down my throat. Like I had no reason to have to be a
crusader for the atheist army.
Yeah, like it's annoying to think back on, because it's like the amount more that I could have learned and the deeper conversations I could have had with people if I didn't just go into them like, okay, cool, this is a debate. Like anything about religion is now a debate, not a discussion.
If you can overlook that, like I said, in my mind, you don't get to tell anybody they're wrong on their journey.
Right.
But if you are willing to have the conversation with them, regardless of who it is, whether it's Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, atheist, you are going to learn something.
Right.
There's a reason that conversation occurs. And I don't mean like a fated reason. I just mean if you listen, there's a reason that they feel the way that they feel about the spiritual realm or about anything esoteric. Right. And it is worth hearing because you're about to learn something. So if you can put down your own judgment just for a second, it doesn't mean that they're going to put down theirs.
Right.
They may still come to this conversation very judgmental. Too bad. Deal with it.
Right.
Just deal with it for a minute and be willing to have the conversation with them and hear them out. Mm-hmm. What's the problem with it?
Yeah, there's not. That's the correct way to go about it. And like, as I've gotten older, it's something I've taught my son over the years too. Like, no matter how, pick the person in your life, first person that comes to mind when someone says idiot. There's probably like one person at work or in your life that comes to mind, at least one, that you're like, yeah, that guy comes to mind when I hear the word idiot.
You know what's so funny is that my mind works so differently that when you say idiot, I'm not even like a tarot card person. Yeah. I don't do like tarot decks or anything. But the first thing when you say idiot that appears in my mind is the fool from the deck of tarot cards.
Okay. Well, that still works for my
I don't
theory.
know why. It's not even a human. It just appears that way in my mind. And I don't even know where I got it. Like I said, like...
I thought you were going to say...
And I'm not opposed to tarot. I would love to have a little bit of experience in it. I just don't know anything about it.
Right. That's not something I can even speak on because I don't know.
No. Anything. Do I think it's interesting and enthralling? Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I want to know more. Except it's just is spiritual. Nope, that's not how I want to say that. Even with where I go on my spiritual journey, I love the people who are very into astrology or numerology. And I do want to learn more. And at some point I will. I just don't know much about it. Right. So as I'm learning, I'm always trying to find people who know about it. And sometimes I get interesting answers that I'm not sure really resonate with me 100%. Mm-hmm. And then other times I learn things that all of a sudden I have an answer to a question that I've been asking forever that I didn't even know had anything to do with astrology or numerology or birth numbers or birth charts or whatever these different tools that people are using are.
Right.
I didn't even know that's how they worked.
Well, so
I learn new stuff all the time that I had no idea that that's what that was about.
Right. Yeah, me too. And that's you. So you said that second half of that for me. Essentially, you gave a good example because no matter how much you consider someone an idiot, I challenge you to find me an idiot that doesn't know something more than you do. Like, no matter what it is, even if it's something that you think is dumb, like has no bearing, has no reason to be important, whatever, there's somebody out there that you don't respect who knows more about something than you do.
I always just assume that I'm the idiot. That I'm just
Right,
the
yeah.
dumbest person in the room.
It's the easiest way to learn. I mean, that's the thing. I saw something the other day that said, one day I decided that I'm no longer gonna correct people who aren't paying me to do so, and my life got so much easier. like no matter what you say, wow, cool, that's interesting, and then just move on. Don't correct anybody. Who gives a shit? Like they have no impact on you. But
the only time I ever feel a need, like a burning need to correct somebody, is usually when I don't really care for them in a situation. And my mind always goes back to, did you ever read The Art of War by Sun Tzu? That book has one of the best quotes of all times. And it says, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake.
Yep.
So I always have to stop in the moment and ask myself, am I about to correct this person because it's going to benefit everybody? Or am I correcting them because I don't really care for them in this situation?
In which case you shouldn't anyway.
And if we're being honest, every time that's come up in my life, it's not the same anymore because I changed career paths and I'm out of the corporate world. And now that I'm a life coach, it makes it a lot different. But at the time, it typically took place in very corporate environments. Mm-hmm. And it was usually somebody who was more or less in the way of where I was going. Mm-hmm. And that had to have been one of the most useful quotes throughout my professional career that always rang in my mind.
Yeah.
Never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's such a simple idea. It makes all the sense in the world, but people make that mistake all the time.
A lot of people don't have the knowledge.
Right.
Right? I didn't have that knowledge until I read it from a place where I was in tune with it.
Right, yeah, like a respected source, essentially, like for you.
For me, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's another thing that I struggle with too when it comes to being agnostic in general. As you know, I don't like to take people's word for things. I don't really like to be told much of anything.
I
like to hear it.
Anything to do with a religious point of view so much as a deep-seated belief in yourself.
And that's kind of what it is like it's not that I think I know better than anyone else. I just don't know why I have to take their word for anything. Like I can, like, why not me is very much like a thing. And it's not like why did I get passed up? But like, if someone else can do it, then I can do it too. So I will listen to what people have to say. But as soon as it starts turning towards, so this is also what you should say, or this is an absolute truth, I'm turned off. I don't want to hear it anymore because I'm like, I don't care what your truth is. I'm interested, but I don't have to, or what's that? I can accept your point of view without adapting it. I can accept that that's your point of view and that this is true for you without it becoming my new point of view. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, something I've struggled with my whole life and didn't really realize that's what was going on. I knew it made me angry when people felt like they were pushing something on me or whatever, but I also assumed that's what they were doing no matter what they were telling me or how much they didn't care what my theory was. If they were just telling me about their own experience, I assumed they were trying to convert me or something, which turned me off immediately.
I think everybody operates on assumptions to a great degree. Yours is they're demanding from me. They're telling me what to do. Mm-hmm. There's many people who their assumption in life is these people don't like me. Everybody operates on some sort of assumption that drives them. Mm-hmm. And it's there can be more than one, but there is one sole driver. And once you discover what that sole driver is for you, then knowledge is power. You can adapt that or recognize when it's showing up and then create the mentality and the attitude that you need to have around it to not let that take over your life. For example, in your case, when you find out my driver is don't tell me what to do, then you can stop and wait in the moment for a second. And it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be an awkward pause. But in a moment when you start to feel heated, you can address that with yourself and ask, is this person trying to tell me what to do? Or are they giving me an opinion in a way that sounds like a direction?
Right.
And then you don't have to overreact. You can make that conversation what it needs to be.
Right. And that's something I've been getting better at too, is taking control of a conversation for myself. I'm not trying to dominate a conversation, but controlling myself in the conversation and listening to what they're saying and just having a confident, calm response and not putting emotions to what someone else is saying, because that I'm assuming how they want me to feel and I'm either resisting it or whatever. I'm making assumptions. Mm-hmm. And
which during that conversation, they're also working on whatever their deep-seated assumption is.
right. Yep. And for me, it's been so much easier to feel those anxieties of wanting to push back because they want me to be part of some group or recruit me or change my mind about something. And rather than like when I feel that, just like taking a deep breath kind of and realizing like, you know where you stand, you know what you believe. You don't have to prove anything to them, but you can also be like, oh, that's interesting. Like it's not exactly how I go about doing things, or what you can say whatever you want to say, but you can do it calmly and not have emotion about it. It's like, that's cool.
It's not even about not having emotion. It takes you out of defense mode.
Right.
When you're working on those assumptions, which are, again, wherever they're coming from, when you're working on those assumptions, then you're immediately in defense mode.
Right.
I assume they're telling me what to do, or they're going to tell me what to do. So therefore, no matter what they say, I'm going to have to defend the fact that I don't want to do what I'm told.
Right.
And I need to have a reason for that.
Yeah.
And then my reason needs to be that they're this and I'm that. Again, recognizing these assumptions means you get to let them go. You don't have to go into a conversation assuming anybody's telling you anything.
Yeah.
And that's where you get to operate on a different level. Instead of playing defense, you're playing offense now.
Right.
This
And
is what makes good leaders, is they've identified these things and they're able to either deal with the assumption as this is my problem, this is my responsibility, I have to control this, or some are able to digest it enough that they can actually dissolve it.
Right. Yeah, that would be the ultimate goal, I think, is to be able to do that. But currently I'm just like, you can talk to me about religion now. It's way easier conversation for me. Just don't ask me to come to your church. It's real freaking annoying. Even if I did believe in a God.
But what if it was like a church barbecue and there were going to be hot dogs?
No, because there's also people and I don't like them. I mean, you know me. The worst thing that you can do for me if you want me to have a conversation with you is start making me feel like you want to be my friend. Like we're going to exchange phone numbers and get together sometime. I'll talk to you for hours as long as I know for sure that I'm never going to talk to you again.
Just for the record, I have your phone number.
Right. Well, you got through. You got.
I got through. I broke through the barriers, guys. I'm in.
Me. I know. It's all right. I can. I'm all right with a few. But yeah. So I mean, that's where most of my like pushback came from, and I didn't have the same experiences. I really don't like it when you start showing interest, and then someone says something like, "Oh, I can tell you're searching for answers, though." Like you're going to come around. I can tell you're searching though. You want a God. Like you're searching for a spirituality. No, I'm searching for a truth. That does not mean that it needs to be. I would be just as happy to find out that the atheist is right as I am to find out that anyone else is right. It's fine. I'm searching for as much truth as I can
You're
find.
searching for your own truth.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing that a lot of people search for. And it's not wrong, right? In accepting somebody else's truth as the whole truth, it becomes your lie. I'm not saying other people don't have truth to offer. I'm saying that you need to evaluate if it's your truth.
Mm-hmm.
The journey is different for everybody. And regardless, you could go to every God-fearing person on the planet and ask them about their relationship with God, and it will never sound the same as somebody else's.
Exactly.
There is no one truth, even in a one religion state, right? If you're in the same church with the same society of churchgoers, it's all going to be, if you have it broken down to bare bones, it's going to be a different relationship everybody has.
Right. And then,
now move that into the world of all religions. Yeah. Everybody's going to have a different relationship with their deities.
Within the religion even.
And it doesn't make any of them wrong.
Right.
That doesn't mean anybody has to be wrong. Just because your relationship with whatever universal power you're having a relationship with, none of it's wrong. It can't be wrong.
Right.
That's the point. It can't be wrong. And I'm pretty sure that if you look at the spiritual world, there's not only are there deities probably beyond our wildest imagination, but there's so much flora and fauna and different types of creatures that we can't even begin to reach understanding.
Or how they came to be in the form that they are.
We can't even understand the human body. We live inside of this meat suit every second of every day of our entire lives. There are whole societies 100% dedicated to nothing but the study of, and we still don't even know how the body functions. We find new functions all the time, let alone do we understand like how did these cells mutate? How did they become cancerous? How do we fix that? And anybody's going to proclaim to tell me they know everything there is to know about the spirit realm. You can see the body. You live in it. We can see through it. We have x-rays. We do dissections. We do cadaver labs. We can't even get a handle on that.
Nope. And we can touch and look at everything.
Right. And then I just can't imagine that outside of your own experience that you can claim to confirm or deny anything.
Yeah. And I would say that that's my swing. Like, as far as like where I've...
Are you a swinger now?
I've been swinging. But as far as
Brian's a spiritual swinger.
I like it. Yep. That's my new... I'm not agnostic anymore. I'm a spiritual swinger. But as far as where the swing has left me right now, I think that everything is possible, and I also think that it's one of the possibilities is that everyone is right, and that whatever you think life is going to be after you die, at least that part of spirituality, what you think the afterlife is whatever you think it is. And
it would make sense. Right.
Yeah.
If you can create your own reality, then why wouldn't you continue to create your own reality?
Right. And I think one of the problems with that, with a few people I've really shared that with, I guess, is they don't like it because there's no consequence. Because I can be the worst person that's ever lived, and if I believe that that's going to get me into some kind of paradise when it's all over, it does. That you do go there, and people don't like it. They don't like that idea because there's no consequence for your actions while you're here. There's no benefit to being good. There's nothing negative about being bad. But it is possible. It like, just because it sounds shitty because no one has to pay for anything doesn't mean it's impossible.
It certainly doesn't mean it's impossible. And being good or bad or right or wrong, isn't that a subjective view anyway?
Right.
Think about that, right? In our society, at least here, murder is wrong. Mm-hmm. That's wrong. You don't just go around murdering people. We have like a hard stop on that. Not everybody. There's some people. And if you're getting paid by the government, I mean, it's a whole different realm of what's good, bad, right, and wrong. But generally speaking, we're not huge fans of murder. We say that's bad, you go to hell. Change the location. Okay? Now you go to a country where doing suicide bombings is a way that you get into heaven. Right. This is now what the good do. And I won't even use that necessarily as a reasoning, because that can be kind of hard to relate to. But now let's look at the Norse religion. The way that you get a seat at the table in Valhalla is to die in war. Yeah. You must die in a battle or in childbirth, which I think is super poetic that they consider childbirth a form of war.
Fucking A.
Seriously, that's pretty cool. But that's how you get to the halls of Valhalla. You have to be a berserker. And that's what the culture is based on.
Right.
Dying old and sick is our penalty for not being warriors. So when you look at it from different perspectives, it really does break down to perspective. And there's actually a lot of the esoteric writings that talk about how even, say a serial killer, we'll just go back to that. When they pass, they do go to heaven, because anything that's malice washes off of the soul. Those are sheerly human actions.
Yeah.
And am I saying it's right? No, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I don't know. Right. I don't know what happens more than anybody else does.
But it's not a unique perspective.
It's not a unique perspective. Right. It's not a unique perspective at all.
And that's the other thing. This is like a Ricky Gervais quote. He was being interviewed by Stephen
I like that
Colbert.
You know where you actually heard stuff, and I'm just like, man, one time I read.
It's only because I keep all
difference in memories.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot, so it's easy to keep track of. But but he was Stephen Colbert was essentially he's a Catholic. If I didn't know that until I saw this.
I love the Catholic religion.
Yeah, it's
I do. It's so nuts, but I love all of the rituals.
Yeah.
And I love that they perform massive amount of ritualistic magic within the church. And then everybody's like, yeah, magic is illegal. It's according to the Bible.
Yeah, you're not supposed
But if you've ever been to a Catholic church, it's nothing but magic rituals.
All rituals.
And most people just don't even know what they are.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No,
I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Okay, but Stephen Colbert practices magic. That's what we figured out. But he's a Catholic. And he's kind of like giving Ricky Gervais a little bit of shit about being an atheist and an outwardly spoken atheist.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I just don't understand how you can think that we came from nothing and we go back to nothing. Like there's just nothing. And he was just like, yes, you can though. He's like, every time anyone asks me that and says, how can you just not believe in any God at all? He's like, how many gods do you believe in as a Catholic? One God above all, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't believe in any of those other gods. There's thousands of gods to pick from. You don't believe in any of those. You think that's all made up nonsense. I believe in one less God than you do. That's the only difference. So if you think you don't understand an atheist and how they cannot believe in something, yes, you can. You are atheistic to every single theology but one. So you do understand them. So try to be a little bit more understanding when you're like, not you, but people in general.
I was going to say the only thing that I just learned is that I don't understand atheists or Catholics. That's what I just found out.
Yeah, there's just too many possibilities. That's kind of where I'm at now, is that I can't pin down one to say that, yep, this is the one, whether it's being an atheist or any other theology.
Which also could be a perception thing, right? Like I said, the relationships with deities are different for everybody. And be that God or any deity under that, it could just be a perception thing. It could be explained wrong to you. You need to go find your own explanation. Again, somebody else's truth is not your truth.
Yeah.
You go find your truth.
Yeah. Go find your truth. That's what it all comes down to. That's the journey I'm on. And that's why I'm just out here being a real friggin' spiritual slut, swinging all over the place, you know?
Yep. That's what you are now, spiritual swinger.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, we hope that you seek your truth, and we'll catch up with you later. More esoteric nonsense to come.
By choice.
Not by chance.